Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news, and with Belgian Grand Prix qualifying done and dusted, Mercedes find themselves once again back in no man's land. After pole position last time out in Hungary, they're now in arguably their worst qualifying position of the entire year in terms of pace. In terms of actual grid start position, it's not too bad, but certainly massive concerns about tomorrow's race pace as well, and also Hamilton implying it's time to just give up on this year's car entirely and focus fully on next year's endeavour. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you are new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Just to mention this real quick, because of course George Russell, the most consistent finisher on the grid, has only been when he's finished a race, not at Silverstone, P3 to P5. Could be a different story this weekend if of course Leclerc, Verstappen come through the field as you might expect them to. Yes, Mercedes generally have been quicker in race pace. I think it's their tyre warm-up they see as the key issue that's reducing the grip that they believe they can potentially extract. It was a problem for them back in Imola as well, and still I thought today was going to be warmer. Today was still rather cold. Tomorrow might be warmer, of course, generally with more laps in the car with a heavier fuel load. Mercedes does tend to be a bit better, but yeah, they're still going to be nowhere near more than likely the pace that Verstappen and maybe Perez and maybe the Ferraris might be able to deliver. These were the final qualifying times. Hamilton, the quicker of the two Mercedes in Q3, 1.8 seconds down. Yes, okay, it's a long lap around Spa, but he was losing so many tenths, both of the Mercedes were, in just the middle sector alone, and they've got lower straight line speed because they're running higher downforce, so they lost so much in sector 1 as well. George Russell was over 2 seconds back and barely even beating out Alex Albon, right? They could have been behind the Williams, it should have been quite something. Of course, both Mercedes ended up behind both Alpines as well, which is definitely a surprise. Ocon will start from the back of the grid though because of his penalty, but Alonso will be alongside Hamilton, and still, despite everything, Hamilton still can't get above a 4th place start on the grid this year. So P7, P8, not the result the Mercedes were looking for. Generally, you tend to see with Mercedes on Saturday morning, have they figured it out or have they not? And if they haven't, the weekend is eventually chalked for them until the race. Sometimes the race is rather different. But I mean, yeah, the frustrations are emerging because it seems like from what Lewis was saying that they were really confident this weekend could be a turning point. They'd be pretty close in quali, could deliver the goods in the race, something like that. But yeah, obviously it wasn't the case at all. So this is the grid, at least in terms of the top 6. Sainz, Perez, Alonso, Hamilton, Russell and Albon. But I mean, yeah, Max is not too far behind back there in P15, and he is certainly the one to watch for tomorrow. And Hamilton was honestly mind-blowing, right? He asked Bono, how far are we off? He did what he thought, I imagine, was a pretty good lap there in quali. He did like a 1:45 mid or something. And then he was like, okay, how far were we behind Verstappen? And he was like, yeah, Verstappen did a 1:43.6. And Hamilton was like, hang on a second here, 1.8 seconds off the pace. What is going on? These were the numbers on the whole, right? Verstappen a 1:43.6, Hamilton 1:45.5, Russell 1:45.7. I mean, yeah, that's obviously not going to cut it in terms of qualifying pace, and probably the biggest deficit you've seen so far this season. In really remarkable fashion for that to be the case. Wanted to share the reaction then immediately from Lewis Hamilton and George Russell as well, the two Mercedes drivers, discussing why their car is just so inconsistent, what the main issue is, what they can maybe hope for tomorrow, even though they haven't figured it out so far this weekend, and also Hamilton effectively admitting this car is just an absolute nightmare. Not going to miss this car next year. Let's just scrap this entire project. And I guess Hamilton will get back to the factory as soon as possible after this weekend to tell them what he wants from next year's car a little bit more, because that apparently is his focus.
Surprising pace from the Red Bull today. I think they've taken everyone by surprise on that, but also not being as close as you wanted to coming here as well, I guess, for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think struggle to comprehend how you're on pole in the last race and we're 1.8 seconds off today, and not obviously just a max, but we were 6 tenths behind the Alpines. Always when the temperature's cold, we struggle. We saw it in Imola this year. We've seen it in many other Fridays when it's been a cool Friday. We just can't seem to get the tyres working. So yeah, it's pretty frustrating. I'm confident we'll have a lot more pace tomorrow compared to like the Alpines and the McLarens and the Williams as well. But we'll still be probably half a second to a second behind Red Bull and Ferrari.
We saw, you guys having to do that second push lap, but actually in terms of the race pace and looking after your tyres, it's been a pretty positive sign this season. What can you achieve tomorrow, and how difficult is it going to be to, say, even get a podium here?
I mean, it depends how quickly. I mean, I think Max will probably still win the race. I don't know where he's going to be starting. But with the pace he's got, he'll probably still win the race. And then Charles as well, he'll probably come through. So I think it's unlikely we'll be on the podium tomorrow, in all honesty, because we've still got Carlos and Checo there, and Max is going to slice through the field pretty quickly. So I don't know. We need to look overnight, try and understand it. Qualifying's out of the way, which has been our weak point, and try and be faster tomorrow.
So how's the mood in the team then if you've come here and the gap's
it's
that big?
obviously not great for sure, because we want more than this. We're Mercedes in qualifying. P7 and P8 is not where we want to be, and we know that's not where the car is. We know we probably don't have the fastest car or the second fastest car, but we definitely have a car that's capable of more than P8 and P7. So yeah, we've got work to do. Thank you.
Yeah, you obviously everyone's working for improvements. We come here and we came here very, very optimistic that we're going to be able to be close, half a second, who knows. And to be 1.8 seconds behind, it's a real kick in the teeth. But yeah, it is what it is. It's a car that we continue to struggle with, and definitely won't miss it at the end of the year. For me, it's just about focusing on how we build and design next year's car. The other two teams ahead of us are in another league, but our car looks so much different to theirs. So we've got a lot of work to do. We'll do the best we can with what we have for the rest of the season.
So at the end of the day, of course, it could be worse for Mercedes, but given the fact that they're P7, P8, I mean, it almost looked for a time they were going to struggle to get out of Q1 and then struggle to get into Q2, as they did, and eventually finishing where they did behind, of course, both Ferraris, both Red Bulls, both Alpines. That's, of course, not an ideal situation for them to be in. But with the penalties, it's not too bad. P4, P5, they can still do work from there, and the race pace generally is better for them. They should theoretically be able to get Alonso, you would imagine, if the pace is similar to what we've seen in previous weekends. But they're not going to be able to compete with the Red Bulls, most certainly. Maybe the Ferraris, who knows what happens tomorrow. But it's rare that we see a difference generally between Mercedes in quali and race pace. But if they're not there at all in quali, then even a small improvement is not going to make a massive difference when it comes down to tomorrow. So George Russell's still confident they can battle for a podium, but I think they came into this weekend, especially given Leclerc and Verstappen's penalties, thinking they could win this race, and now that's probably not on the table, right? And that's the thing. Max Verstappen will go into tomorrow with an immense amount of confidence that he can win this entire race and where he starts on the grid with the confidence he has in the car. Mercedes will think, well, okay, we went from thinking we could get a win here to now trying to just hold on to a podium, if that's even possible at all, and therefore the confidence isn't necessarily where it needs to be. And also this is the thing with George Russell. He was literally on pole last time out in Hungary. Yes, 3 or 4 weeks ago at this point, but still, to go from pole to 2 seconds off the pace, it's like, how does that even happen? How is that even possible? You rarely see that, really. Yes, some cars are kind of inconsistent. One weekend they're good, one weekend they're not. But a track like Spa is one of the kind of testing ground tracks, right? It has everything. It has the long straights, has the high-speed corners, has a couple of low-speed corners thrown in. It's a pretty good circuit to get a benchmark of what your car is capable of. And here Mercedes are over halfway through the season with a car that should be significantly upgraded on where they were at the start. 2 seconds off the pace of the Red Bulls with the flexi-floor change that Russell himself was saying was going to make a difference. Obviously not a good look for them at all, right? And Hamilton, of course, feels this as well. Says, yes, it's a decent grid position still nonetheless. We could maybe get a top 5 tomorrow, but we haven't been top 5 speed this weekend. So, Hamilton often is, rather pessimistic after practice and quali and can be more optimistic after a race weekend, but it's not exactly seeming great for them, especially because grid penalties could still be to come for the Mercedes as the year progresses. And as he goes on to say, I didn't expect to be almost 2 seconds off coming into this weekend. I've worked hard in the sim, we've trained hard, worked hard to make improvements of the car. To be further away than ever before was definitely a kick in the groin, but we get up, we keep fighting. I hope that our race pace is a little bit better than this today. Definitely a tough to swallow pill though, because we've given it everything and it just won't go any faster, he says. So frustrated with the car, understandably. So he's like, look, we've still got a lot of work to do. We'll do the best we can for the rest of the season, but effectively now writing off this car. We saw him a few months ago effectively write off the championship, which was understandable given the situation, and now he's basically written off this car. It's a car that we continue to struggle with, definitely won't miss it at the end of the year. For me, it's just focusing on how we build and design next year's car. The other two teams ahead of us are in another league. Our car looks so much different to theirs. I guess he means not necessarily looks as in how it performs, but also maybe in just how it looks, right? It actually looks very different. The the no side pod design. And we talked about recently that Mercedes are kind of doubled down on it and seem to be making progress. But whether it's that part of the concept or whatever it is that makes their car so inconsistent, they just can't have that next year. So Hamilton is seemingly fundamentally focused on next year's design and how he can help it be as good as it possibly can be, because that apparently, like, he seems like he's basically given up on this year's car. Now, he won't necessarily have given up on results for this season, but you know, still, he's effectively chalked it up at this point and said, well, you know, obviously the championships aren't going to come, and maybe even the potential fight that Hamilton could still have for P2 in the drivers is maybe also not on the card. So difficult weekend for all those guys. And to make it even more difficult, he lines up next to none other than Fernando Alonso, right? Alonso never goes down without a fight, even though, well, of course, we saw he defended against Hamilton like a lion back that year in Hungary. But in fairness, this year in Hungary, it was rather more easy to overtake. But I mean, yes, still, Alonso will line up next to Hamilton, and it's not like Hamilton's going to have the crazy straight line speed required to get past him on the Kemmel Straight, for example. Could, of course, get a good start, Hamilton, but Alonso also known as a rather good starter as well in his own right. So going to be an interesting start to the race. And also if Alonso, let's say, holds up Hamilton, if the Mercedes does have better pace in race trim than the Alpine does, then of course that does expose the Mercedes even more to the potential of Verstappen and Leclerc coming through the field. Yeah, let's say Hamilton and Russell get held up for a few laps by Alonso, then of course, well, the gap that they will have, the advantage over Verstappen, will be seriously diminished as the race progresses over the 44 laps around Spa. And no, even Alonso does admit, yes, the Mercedes is strong in the race, but the Alpine feels good, the car works well, it likes fast corners. In Spa there are several, so that's a good sign most certainly for Alonso. But yeah, the key threat I think tomorrow, they're definitely going to have to keep your eyes out on the timesheet to Max Verstappen making his way through the fields, and the Mercedes will be vulnerable if he can potentially catch up to them. But very much into your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you are new as always, take care, and I'll see you next time.